Hello everyone, I'm Senator Mary Landrieu and welcome to a special edition of Mary's Mail. We're changing it up a little bit today, this time, and talking about an important hearing happening in Washington this week to restore the Gulf Coast. This week, the Environmental and Public Works Committee will be considering the Restore Act, an act that I sponsored and introduced with a bipartisan group of senators from the Gulf Coast. This important bill would direct at least 80% of the fines that BP will have to pay under the Clean Water Act for the accident that occurred over a year and a half ago in the Gulf back to the 5 Gulf Coast states to help restore our ecosystems and strengthen our economies. It's only right that these monies be redirected to the areas that received the impacts and the injury from this spill. This hearing is the first and very critical step in moving this bill across the finish line to the President's desk. We expect a favorable vote in the committee, but we need your help to make this happen. A lot of my constituents and others from across the Gulf have written in about this issue and about the bill, so I'd like to take a minute to answer some of the more frequently asked questions that I've received. The first question is, how much will BP pay, or in other words, what will the settlement be? We don't know for sure, but the law says that BP is responsible to pay $1,100 per barrel of oil spilled if they're found to be simply negligent, or $4,300 per barrel if they're found to be grossly negligent. So, and do the math, the fines could be between $5.4 billion and $21.1 billion. It's a lot of money. So we're hoping for something north of $10 billion for the BP to be fined to help us clean up the Gulf. The second question is, what happens if the bill doesn't pass? What happens to the money? If our bill doesn't pass, the Restore Act, and if a fine is levied against BP, that money will go to the General Fund of the United States, and there'll be absolutely no security that any part of that money will be spent in the Gulf Coast, and that would be a shame. The next question that comes is, how is the money divided among the states? It was a compromise. That was a tough negotiation because, of course, every state wanted all the money, so we had to go from there to try to figure out a way to adequately, fairly allocate it. So 35% of the total amount will be shared equally by the Gulf Coast states. 60% of the fund will go to establish a Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Council, which will implement a robust and comprehensive restoration of the Gulf Coast based in large measure what the states themselves want to do with that money. And 5% of the fund will go to establish a science and technology program through centers of excellence throughout the Gulf Coast. So we're excited about the way this money will be allocated, and the most important thing for us in Louisiana is to start turning dirt on some of these projects and programs that have just simply been waiting for funding. This is our chance. What happens, people say to me, after the EPW hearing? Well, that's a good question, what exactly will happen, but the regular order would be for the committee to send the bill to the floor of the Senate, have a short debate and passage there, and then go on to the House for a committee hearing and passage on the floor. There is a way to short-circuit that process, and we're working on that the best we can. Steve Scalise, who is leading this effort in the House, is working on getting support of a bill almost identical to ours. That would be terrific, and we could cut down on the time involved. But right now we need to move it out of the committee in the Senate, off the Senate floor, and get it over to the House for consideration. And finally, what can you do to help is the next most important question. You can call your members of Congress from Louisiana, from the Gulf Coast states. Most importantly, you could call members from outside of the Gulf Coast, urging them to support this bill that's so important to our area, but it really is important also indirectly to the rest of the country, given the resources and fisheries that go all over the country. Oil and gas that is produced along the Gulf Coast benefits almost every area of our country. The migratory birds, the importance of wetlands as a drainage and filter, if you will, for all of the water coming down through the continental United States out to the Gulf of Mexico through that great Mississippi River and the Atchafalaya and the other tributaries. So please let your voice be heard, and for more questions or information, you can go to my website at landrieu.senate.gov, and we'll keep you posted. This is very important to Louisiana and the Gulf Coast, and it's the right thing to do for the environment in the Gulf Coast and for our economy. Thank you so much.